few months ago, FilmConvert challenged me to recreate the look of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. So to replicate these looks as well as I could, I booked a flight to Iceland, invited my dad to come along, and we started to map out the shot list. So after doing a little bit of research on Shot Deck, we found out that some of the scenes were shot in Vatnajökull National Park, Europe's largest glacier covering 8% of Iceland. It was also shot on Kodak 5207, which is available in FilmConvert. So the first look we wanted to recreate was the Himalayas sequence from the movie. So we took a couple drone shots, and once we were satisfied with the images, we fired up DaVinci Resolve. So we went on the color page, added 4 nodes, and on the second one, we added FilmConvert. We then chose our right camera profile, in that case it was shot on Mavic Air, and then we started tweaking exposure and white balance. When comparing to the reference image, we can clearly see that our drone shot is way more blue in the sky. So to fix that, we had to go in our color wheels and add some yellow in the highlights. The next thing to attack was the color of the blues. In order to get the teal look in the shadow parts of the mountains, we selected our hue versus hue curves and brought the curves up until the colors matched. Once we had that under control, we matched the color of the grass using the same concept. The next step was to add a vignette to put the viewer's attention in the middle of the frame. So we selected a circular power window and shaped the vignette to our liking. We then went in our curves and dropped a point in the mids, and on our following node, which was an outside node, we checked editable splines and raised the highlights to make the center of the image pop. So just like that, in the matter of a minute, we were able to replicate this look fairly easily. So once we were satisfied with the shot, we moved on to the next location, the Golden Circle. So we started looking at different stills and found this scene we really wanted to recreate. It was also shot on Kodak 5207. This scene was shot later in the afternoon, and the grade was certainly pushed with a high level of contrast and saturation. The dust was lit by a harsh side light, which we wanted to recreate in our shot. So we hopped in the car and went to Geysir, a geothermal area located in southwest Iceland. In order to recreate the shots we had in mind, we needed some backlit steam to imitate the dust in the reference image. If you've ever been to Iceland, you'll know that the weather is a constant roller coaster. So we waited about 20 minutes and finally the sun came out. So luckily we were able to get the exact image we had in our head. So we fired up DaVinci Resolve. Like in the first grade, we started with 4 nodes. On the first node we put noise reduction. So we clicked here, added 3 frames, put our temporal threshold to 4.8, unlinked the spatial threshold, and raised the chroma to about 6 or 7. So the next step is to put FilmConvert on the third node. And then we choose the right camera profile. In that case it was shot on Blackmagic 6K Film Gen 5, and automatically you'll see that Kodak 5207 is selected, which is the film stock we're going to use. So then we bring our images side by side, start by matching the saturation of the image. That looks pretty good. By increasing the saturation first, it allows you to see the colors a little bit better to get the image in the right ballpark. You'll see here it's a deep blue teal color, and here it's a bit more warm. So we'll need to create the separation in the image to add some blue in the shadows and add some warmth in the highlight, as you can see here. So on the 4th node, we'll right click, add node, parallel node. We'll do our selection of the shadows. So we'll click on qualifiers, make sure qualifier is selected here, and then we'll target the darkest part of the image, which is here. You can click Shift H to see your selection. Right off the bat, it looks pretty good, but it's not super clean. So we'll need to denoise the image, clean the blacks, and add some blur radius here. There's still some saturated parts that we don't want to be included in our selection, so we'll drop the saturation a little more, and then we can play with the luminance here. Perfect. So now that we have our selection done, we can bring both images back side by side, go in our color wheels here and start to inject some blue in the shadows. We can reduce the gamma a little bit just to match the color and the brightness. And I'd say that's a pretty good start for now. We can always come back later and do some final adjustments. And then we'll do the same thing with our highlights. So we'll go in our qualifier. What I love to do with highlights is bring the low soft up, click Shift H to see the selection, and then bring the lower luminance values up. You'll see that slowly you'll start to get rid of everything that's not bright. So here we have a pretty good selection, but we still have some saturated parts of the image that we want to get rid of. So the grass and the sky as well. So we can correct that by dropping the saturation in our selection, and then do the same thing, add blur radius, clean the whites this time instead of the blacks, and denoise. So then we'll bring both our images side by side again, and you'll see that this is pure white. Compared to here, it's way more warm. So we'll go in our gain and push the colors towards yellow. Always go too far and then bring it back. So that looks pretty good to me right now. The only thing I don't like is the color of the sky here. So we'll add another parallel node and tweak the color of the sky. And what we can do is start by tweaking the hue of the sky. That looks a bit more realistic to me. So once I'm happy with the grade we have, I usually love to bring in another still from the same scene just to make sure it blends with the scene as a whole and not just one reference image. So in that case, I brought in that wider shot. So in that wider shot, you can see the sky is much more purple. So you can use your power window here, bring it up, click Shift H to see your selection. We don't want our selection to affect the mountains, so we'll do some other qualifiers here. We'll bring the low soft up, and then we'll do the same thing here. So we got rid of the mountains. You can add some denoise as usual, and then blur the radius. Perfect, that looks good. So we have our sky selected here, and then we'll play with our offset. So you can go here and inject some magenta in the sky. So once we look at those three stills side by side, we can see that we were able to match the hue of the grass, insert some blue in the shadows, add some warmth in the highlight, and match a contrast and saturation level overall. So as you know by now, a lot of my grades are inspired by movie stills. This is where ShotDeck really comes into play. It's the largest collection of high definition movie images out there, and I use it on a daily basis. Using ShotDeck and FilmConvert together really allows me to explore the different color grades out there and build a look DNA that fits my project. Sometimes as colorists, we play it safe and we don't push the image as much as we could. ShotDeck really allows you to see that the colorists of the biggest movies out there didn't hold back when creating their look. Long story short, ShotDeck is where I get my inspiration, and FilmConvert is how I make my vision come to life. Both companies were kind enough to give some discount codes for you guys, so if you want to adopt my color grading workflow, make sure you check out the links in the description.